My daughter thinks I am sleeping on the street tonight. She has no idea. I am actually sitting in a boardroom, signing the eviction notice for her luxury apartment. Yesterday, she sold my home. She sold my car. She left me with nothing but a suitcase and a cruel laugh. She called me a burden. She thought I was just a helpless old widow, weak and stupid. But she made one fatal mistake. She never checked the paperwork. She didn't know my husband left me a secret empire. And she definitely didn't know that I am the new owner of the building she lives in. She thinks she broke me, but she just handed me the weapon to destroy her. This is not a story about grief. This is a chess match. And she just lost. The fluorescent lights of the clinic hummed. It was a low sound, like a dying fly trapped in a window pane. The waiting room smelled of rubbing alcohol and stale coffee. I sat on a green plastic chair. It was hard. It dug into my back. I checked my watch. 11:15 in the morning. The rain was drumming against the glass of the window. Gray, cold, just like the rest of my life. Since Robert died, my name is Antonia. And I was invisible. The receptionist didn't look at me. The nurse walked past me. To them, I was just another old woman, waiting to be told she was falling apart. I adjusted my purse on my lap. It was an old leather bag. Robert bought it for me 10 years ago. The leather was worn at the corners, soft, familiar. It was the only thing I had left that felt like him. Then my phone rang. The sound cut through the silence of the room. Heads turned. Eyes judged. I fumbled to find it. The screen lit up with a photo. It was Angela, my only daughter. In the photo, she was smiling. It was a picture from 5 years ago, back when she still looked at me with love, or at least, back when she was better at pretending. I answered, hoping for a kind word. Maybe she was calling to check on my doctor's appointment. Maybe she wanted to have lunch. "Hello, honey," I said. My voice sounded weak, fragile. "Mom, listen to me," she said. Her voice was sharp, like breaking glass. There was no warmth, no greeting, just the cold efficiency of a business transaction. "I don't have much time," she continued. "I'm at the airport. Edward and I are leaving the airport." My heart skipped a beat. Leaving. "Where are you going?" "Europe," she said. "We're going to live in Paris. Edward has a business opportunity." I tried to process the words, Paris. That was thousands of miles away. "But Angela," I stammered, "what about me? What about the house?" She laughed. It was a dry, cruel sound. "That's what I'm calling about, Mom. We sold it." The room seemed to tilt. The humming of the lights got louder. "You what?" "We sold the beach house," she said. "And the truck. And the furniture." She spoke faster now, eager to get the words out, eager to be done with me. "We needed the capital for the move. You signed the power of attorney, remember?" I remembered. A stack of papers she put in front of me the day after the funeral. I was blinded by tears. I would have signed my own death warrant if she asked, because I trusted her. I trusted the blood in her veins, but where will I live? I whispered. My hand was shaking. I gripped the phone tighter. "You'll figure it out," she said. Her tone was dismissive. "You have your pension. Just find a small room somewhere. Or go into a home. Honestly, Mom, you're too old to be living in that big house anyway." Cruelty. Pure, unadulterated cruelty. 45 years of raising her, of sacrificing, of loving her more than I loved myself. And this was my repayment. To be discarded like a piece of trash because I was no longer useful. "Angela," I said, "how could you?" "Don't start with the drama," she snapped. "I have to go. My flight is boarding. Don't call us. International rates are expensive. Goodbye, Mom." She didn't hang up immediately. I could hear her muffled voice talking to Edward. "Is it done?" Edward asked in the background. "Yes," Angela said. "The old hag is handled. We're free." And then she laughed again. I should have cried. Any normal mother would have broken down right there in the clinic. I should have felt my world ending. But I didn't, 'cause as she was speaking, as she was stripping away my dignity, My hand had wandered inside my purse. My fingers brushed against something thick, something heavy. Manila paper, textured, cool to the touch, the envelope. Robert had given it to me 3 days before his heart stopped. He had held my hand. His eyes were serious. "Antonia," he had said, "open this only when you feel like you have nothing left." I had forgotten about it in the grief. I had carried it around like a talisman, unopened. But now, with my daughter's laughter echoing in my ear, I felt like I had nothing left. So I pulled it out. I put the phone on my lap. Speakerphone on. Angela was still ranting to Edward about how much money they made from the sale. "We got 300,000 for the house," she was bragging. "Enough to live like kings in Paris." I opened the metal clasp of the envelope. It made a small scraping sound. I slid the contents out onto my lap. There were 3 documents and a bank ledger. The first document was a deed, but not to the beach house. It was a commercial deed for a building downtown. The address looked familiar. 1400 Oak Street. My breath caught in my throat. That was the luxury apartment building. The one with the marble lobby. The one with the doorman. The one where Angela and Edward lived in the penthouse. I read the line at the bottom. Owner Antonia Brooks. Held in trust. The Robert Brooks estate. My hands stopped shaking. My heart slowed down. It started to beat with a heavy, powerful rhythm. Thump, thump, thump. I looked at the second document. It was a summary of investments. Diversified portfolios. Tech stocks bought in the 90s. Real estate holdings across 3 states. And then the bank ledger. I ran my finger down the column of numbers. Black ink. Robert's neat handwriting. Ending balance. $5,200,000. The number stared at me. It didn't look real. It looked like a phone number. I blinked. I looked again. It was still there. $5 million. And entire city blocks of property. On the phone, Angela was still talking. "She's probably crying right now," she told Edward. "She's so pathetic. She never knew how the real world worked." I looked at the paper. Then I looked at the phone. A strange sensation washed over me. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't fear. It was heat. A slow, burning heat that started in my chest and spread to my fingertips. The tears that had been forming in my eyes evaporated. My spine straightened. I leaned back against the hard plastic chair. Suddenly, it didn't feel uncomfortable anymore. It felt like a throne. My daughter thought she was a wolf. She thought she had devoured a sheep. She thought she had won the game. She was flying to Europe with $300,000 of stolen money, thinking she was rich, thinking she was smart, thinking she was free. She had no idea. She didn't know that the apartment she locked up this morning belonged to me. She didn't know that the bank she used for her transfer was a subsidiary of a holding company I now controlled. She didn't know that she wasn't flying away from her problems. She was flying directly into my trap. I picked up the phone again. "Angela," I said. My voice was different now. The tremble was gone. The weakness had evaporated. It was low, steady, dangerous. "What?" she snapped. "I told you I'm boarding. I just wanted to say one thing," I said. I looked at the deed to her building. I traced her address with my thumb. "What?" "Make it quick. Have a safe flight, honey," I said. "Enjoy Paris while it lasts." There was a pause on the other end. For a second, just a fraction of a second. She hesitated. Maybe she heard the steel in my voice. Maybe she felt a shiver down her spine. But her arrogance was too loud. "Whatever, Mom. Don't call us." Click. The line went dead. I looked at the phone screen. Call ended. I lowered the phone. The receptionist called my name. "Mrs. Brooks, the doctor is ready for you." I stood up. I smoothed down my skirt. I placed the documents back into the envelope. I placed the envelope back into my purse. I snapped the clasp shut. The sound was final, like the closing of a coffin lid or the locking of a jail cell. I looked at the receptionist. I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It didn't reach my eyes. It was a smile that showed teeth. I won't be needing the doctor today, I said. I feel excellent. But Mrs. Brooks, she said, you've been waiting for an hour. I know, I said. I walked toward the exit. My heels clicked against the linoleum floor. Click, click, click. Each step echoed with power. I was waiting for something, I said over my shoulder. But I found it. Pushed open the heavy glass doors of the clinic. The rain was still falling, but it didn't feel cold anymore. It felt cleansing. I took a deep breath of the wet air. It smelled of ozone and gasoline. And victory. I walked to the curb. I didn't look for the bus stop. I raised my hand. A yellow taxi swerved and stopped in front of me. I opened the door and slid into the back seat. "Where to, lady?" the driver asked. I looked at him in the rearview mirror. My eyes were dry. My hands were steady. The grieving widow had died in that waiting room. Antonia the matriarch had just been born. "Take me to the office of Mr. Peterson," I said. "The lawyer on Fifth Avenue." "You got it?" he said. "You've got a lawsuit or something?" I looked out the window as the city began to blur past me. I touched my purse one last time. "No," I whispered. "I have an eviction to plan." The taxi tires hissed on the wet asphalt. It was a steady sound, like bacon frying in a pan. The city blurred outside the window. Gray buildings. Neon signs. People rushing under black umbrellas. I looked. Down at my lap. The manila envelope was open. The leather-bound ledger sat heavy on my knees. It smelled of old paper and pipe tobacco. Robert's scent. I ran my hand over the cover. It was cracked, worn, just like Robert's hands had been. To the world, my husband was a simple man, a bus driver. For 40 years, he drove the number 12 route, up and down the city, 6 days a week. He wore the gray uniform. He carried a metal lunchbox. He came home smelling of diesel fuel and exhaust fumes. Angela used to be ashamed of him. I remembered a day from 20 years ago. Angela was 16. She was standing in the kitchen. Her face was twisted in teenage disgust. "Why can't Dad get a real job?" she had asked. "Becky's dad is a lawyer. He wears suits. Dad smells like traffic." I had scolded her then. I told her that honest work was dignity. But I didn't know the truth either. I didn't know that while Robert was driving the number 12 bus, he wasn't just watching the road. He was watching the city. He was watching the neighborhoods change. He saw which blocks were dying and which blocks were waking up. He saw where the artists were moving. He saw where the coffee shops were opening. He saw the future before anyone else did. I opened the ledger to the first page. The date was written in blue ink. October 14th, 1982. I remembered that year. The economy was bad. Interest rates were high. People were panicking. But Robert wasn't panicking. The entry read, "Purchase. 4,400 King Street. Duplex. Foreclosure. Paid in cash." Cash. My eyes widened. Where did he get the cash? Then I remembered. He never spent anything on himself. He wore the same boots for 10 years. He fixed the toaster instead of buying a new one. He cut his own hair. Angela called it stingy. Robert called it capital. I turned the page. 1989. The market crash. Panic in the streets. Blood in the water. Robert's handwriting was steady.com. Purchase. Warehouse district. Sem buildings. Pennies on the dollar. I gasped. The warehouse district. That was the trendiest part of town now. Lofts, galleries, tech startups. Robert had bought them when they were full of rats and dust. He had held them, silent, patient, like a spider in a web. The ledger was thick. Page after page. Year after year. While Angela was begging him for a new car. He was buying the parking lot where she parked it. While she was mocking his uniform, he was buying the dry cleaners where the lawyers she admired cleaned their suits. He was the invisible king of this city, and nobody knew. Not even me. I felt a tear slide down my cheek. But it wasn't a sad tear. It was a tear of awe. He had done this for us. He had built a fortress of stone and brick to protect us from a world he knew could be cruel. He knew Angela was selfish. He saw it in her eyes. He saw how she looked at money. So he hid the money to protect it from her greed. Until the right time, the taxi driver looked at me in the mirror. "You okay back there, lady?" "I'm fine," I said. My voice was strong. "Just reading an old story. Must be a good one," he said. "You look like you just saw a ghost." I had. I had seen the ghost of the man I loved. And I realized I had been married to a genius. I turned to the last section of the ledger. The entries were more recent. The ink was black and sharp. These were the big acquisitions. The ones he made after he retired. When he told us he was going to the park to feed the pigeons, he wasn't feeding pigeons. He was feeding his empire. My finger traced the final entry. It was dated 5 years ago. The address made my blood run cold. Then hot, then cold again. Purchase. The Regency Block. 1400 to 1420 Oak Street. I stopped breathing. The air in the taxi felt suddenly thin. 1400 Oak Street. That wasn't just a building. It was the building. The glass tower. The doorman with the gold buttons. The marble fountain in the lobby. The building where Angela and Edward paid $5,000 a month for a penthouse. The building Angela bragged about constantly. "It's exclusive, Mom," she would say. "Only the best people live here. They have a waiting list." I looked at the notes next to the entry. Robert had written full ownership. Holding company, RB Ventures. My husband owned the building. My husband owned the roof over Angela's head. My husband owned the elevator she took every morning. He owned the very ground she walked on. And now I owned it. I laughed. It was a short, sharp sound. The taxi driver jumped. "Something funny?" he asked. "Irony," I said. "Irony is hilarious." Angela had evicted me from my home. The home Robert built with his hands. She threw me out like garbage. To fund her life in Europe. But to leave for Europe, she had to break her lease at 1400 Oak Street. She had to leave the apartment. And when she came back, crawling back when the money ran out, she would need a place to live. She would try to go back to her luxury tower. She would try to re-sign the lease. She would try to impress the landlord. She didn't know the landlord was the woman she called a burden. She didn't know the landlord was the mother she left to die. Robert didn't just leave me money. He left me a weapon. He left me a nuclear bomb wrapped in leather. It wasn't just wealth. It was power. Absolute, undeniable power. I looked out the window. We were passing the park. I saw a bus. The number 12. It was stopped at a red light. The driver looked tired. He was rubbing his neck. I saluted him. A silent salute to the brotherhood of the invisible. To the ones who watch. To the ones who wait. To the ones who build empires in the shadows while the loud people claim the spotlight. "We're here," the taxi driver said. The car pulled up to the curb. 5th Avenue. The buildings here were tall, imposing, steel and glass, reaching for the gray sky. I looked up at the building in front of me. The Peterson law firm occupied the top 3 floors. Mr. Peterson had been Robert's lawyer for 30 years. I used to think he'd just helped Robert with his will. Or with taxes. Now I knew. He was the keeper of the keys. He was the gatekeeper to the kingdom. I paid the driver. I gave him a $50 tip. "Keep the change," I said. "Buy yourself something nice." He looked at the bill. Then he looked at me. "Thank you, ma'am." "You sure?" "I'm sure," I said. "It's a good day for bus drivers." I stepped out onto the sidewalk. The rain had stopped. The clouds were breaking. A single beam of sunlight hit the pavement. It felt like a spotlight. I clutched the ledger to my chest. I wasn't just Antonia Brooks, the widow. I wasn't just a victim. I was the CEO of RB Ventures. I was the matriarch. And I had a board meeting to attend. I walked toward the revolving doors. My reflection stared back at me in the glass. I looked tired. My coat was old. My shoes were scuffed. But my eyes were fire. Angela wanted a war. She wanted to play games with property and money. She wanted to see who was stronger. Well, honey, you just challenged the bank, and the bank always wins. I pushed through the doors. The lobby was warm. It smelled of expensive lilies and polished wood. The security guard looked up. He saw an old woman in a cheap coat. He started to stand up, probably to ask me if I was lost, probably to point me toward the service entrance. I walked straight past him toward the elevators. I didn't stop. I didn't ask for permission. I pressed the button for the penthouse floor. The doors opened. I stepped inside. As the doors closed, I looked at the ledger one last time. I whispered to the empty car, "Let's go to work, Robert." The elevator doors slid open. With a soft chime, Mr. Peterson's office was exactly as I remembered, quiet, imposing. It smelled of mahogany, polish, and old leather books. The kind of smell that screams money. The secretary looked up from her desk. She was a young woman, with glasses perched on the end of her nose. "Can I help you?" she asked. Her tone was polite, but dismissive. She saw my coat. She saw my worn shoes. She didn't see the millions of dollars in the ledger clutching my chest. "I'm here to see Arthur," I said. I used his first name. It was a power move. "Mr. Peterson is in a meeting," she said. "I'll wait," I replied. I walked past her. I pushed open the heavy double doors to his private office. Arthur was sitting behind his massive oak desk. He was looking at a file. He looked up, annoyed at the intrusion. Then his face changed. "Antonia." He stood up. He looked confused. "My condolences, Antonia. I didn't expect to see you." "Sit down, Arthur," I said. I walked to the leather chair opposite him. I sat down. I placed the ledger on his pristine desk. It made a heavy thud. The sound of history landing in the present. "What is this?" He asked. "That," I said, "is Robert's life work." He opened the book. His eyes scanned the pages. His eyebrows shot up. He flipped the pages faster. His breath hitched. "Good Lord," he whispered. I knew Robert had investments. I handled the paperwork. But I didn't know he kept ... this. "He liked to keep things separate," I said. "He wanted to protect us." Arthur looked at me. His eyes were wide. "Antonia, do you realize what this means? You are one of the wealthiest women in the city." "I know," I said, "and I need to hire you." "Course," Arthur said. He straightened his tie. The dismissiveness was gone. He was looking at a client now. A very important client. "We can file an injunction immediately," he said. He reached for a notepad. His pen scratched against the paper. "We can freeze the sale of the beach house. We can sue your daughter for elder abuse. We can get everything back in a week." "No," I said. The word hung in the air, sharp. Final, Arthur stopped writing. He looked at me over his glasses. "No, I don't want the house back," I said. "Not yet." "I don't understand," he said. "If we don't act now, she gets away with it." I leaned forward. The leather chair creaked beneath me. "She doesn't get away with anything, Arthur. She just walks into a bigger trap." I pointed to the ledger, to the entry about the apartment building. "I own the building where she lives, correct?" "Yes, through the holding company." "And Edward," I said, "my son-in-law. I know he has debts. He's a gambler. He takes risks." Arthur nodded slowly. "We did a background check on him when they married." Robert insisted. "Edward has outstanding business loans." "Significant ones? Who holds the debt?" I asked. Arthur typed something into his computer. The keys clicked. A rhythmic sound in the silent office. A private equity firm downtown. And a few bank loans. "Why?" I smiled. "I want to buy them." Arthur froze. "Buy the loans?" "Yes. I want RB Ventures to acquire every single debt Edward has. I want to own his car loan, his credit card debt, his business loans. I want to own the air he breathes." Arthur leaned back. He took off his glasses. He rubbed his eyes. "Antonia, that is ... Aggressive. It's business, I said. If I sue them now, they will play the victim. They will cry to the judge. They will say I am a senile old woman who forgot she signed a paper. I paused. I let the silence fill the room. But if I own their debt, I control their reality. I can call in the loans whenever I want. I can freeze their assets. I can make them feel the poverty they tried to force on me. Arthur looked at me for a long time. Then a slow smile spread across his face. Robert was right about you, he said. He always said you were the dangerous one. Get it done, Arthur, I said. And one more thing. I need total anonymity. They cannot know it's me. To them, I am just a poor widow sleeping on the street. I left his office an hour later. The sun had set. The city was dark, lit only by the red taillights of cars stuck in traffic. I had a check in my purse for living expenses. But I didn't go to a hotel. I didn't go to the Ritz. I hailed a cab. Take me to the Bluebird Motel, I said. The driver looked at me in the rearview mirror. The Bluebird. Lady, that's on the bad side of town. I know, I said. Just drive. The Bluebird Motel was a dying establishment on the edge of the highway. The neon sign buzzed. BZZZT. BZZZT. The letter M was burnt out. It just said hotel. The parking lot was full of rusted cars and oil stains. It smelled of exhaust and desperation. I walked into the lobby. The carpet was sticky. The man behind the glass partition was watching a small TV. He didn't look at me. $40 a night, he grunted. Cash only. I pulled two $20 bills from my purse. They were crisp, new, a stark contrast to the dirty counter. Room 12, he said. He slid a key under the glass. It had a green plastic tag. Greasy. I walked to room 12. The door creaked when I opened it. The room smelled of stale cigarettes and cheap lemon cleaner. The wallpaper was peeling in the corner. The bedspread was a faded floral pattern that had probably seen things I didn't want to imagine. I sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress sagged. I put my purse on the nightstand, next to a plastic ashtray. I looked around the room. This was my kingdom now. Not the penthouse. Not the beach house. This shabby, broken room. Why did I do it? Why didn't I check into a suite at the Four Seasons? Because I needed to feel it. I needed to feel the cold. I needed to feel the hardness of the mattress. I needed to embody the lie. Angela had to believe I was suffering. If she thought I was okay, she wouldn't feel guilty. Or worse, she would come asking for money. I needed her to think she had destroyed me. Because when the trap snapped shut, the shock needed to be total. I took out my phone. It was a burner phone Arthur had given me, untraceable. I received a text message. The debt acquisition is in process. We will have control within 24 hours. I stared at the glowing screen. Outside, a siren wailed. Someone shouted in the parking lot. A bottle shattered. I didn't flinch. I was safe. My money was a shield. But my poverty was a weapon. I lay back on the lumpy pillow. I stared at the water stain on the ceiling. It looked like a map of my revenge. Angela was probably in first class right now, sipping champagne, laughing with Edward, planning which designer bag to buy in Paris. She thought she was flying toward freedom. She didn't know the pilot worked for me. She didn't know the plane was owned by me. She didn't know she was flying straight into a storm. I closed my eyes. I listened to the hum of the mini fridge. It rattled, a steady, broken rhythm. I imagined Edward's face, the smug smile he always had when he looked at me, like I was a piece of furniture he couldn't wait to sell. I imagined that smile fading. I imagined the moment his credit card would be declined. I imagined the confusion, the panic, the phone call to the bank. I'm sorry, sir. Your assets have been frozen by the creditor. Which creditor? He would ask. RB Ventures, they would say. And he would have no idea that RB Ventures was the old woman he left to rot in a motel room. I slept soundly that night, better than I had in months. The noise of the highway didn't bother me. The smell of smoke didn't bother me, because I wasn't just a widow anymore. I was a hunter, and the hunt had just begun. The next morning, the sun struggled to get through the dirty curtains. I woke up early. I made instant coffee in the small machine by the sink. It tasted like metal. I drank it black. I sat by the window and watched the world wake up. A maid was pushing a cart across the lot. A truck driver was checking his tires. People were surviving, just like Robert and I used to. My phone buzzed. It was Arthur again. It's done. We own the debt. Total value, $250,000. Edward is leveraged to the hilt. One missed payment and we can take everything. When is his next payment due? I typed back. Yesterday came the reply. He missed it. He probably thought he could pay it later with your house money. I smiled. My finger hovered over the send button. Execute, I typed. Freeze the accounts now. I pressed send. I took a sip of the metallic coffee. It tasted delicious. Somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean, or maybe in a bistro in Paris, Edward was about to have a very bad day. The invisible landlord had just collected rent, and the price was everything he had. Paris tasted like champagne. And victory, at least. That is what Angela thought. 4,000 miles away from the Bluebird Motel, the sun was setting over the Seine. The water glittered like liquid gold. The air smelled of roasted chestnuts and expensive perfume. Angela walked down the Rue Saint-Anna. Her heels clicked on the cobblestones. Click, clack, click. It was the rhythm of a new life. She carried 3 shopping mods. Bags thick, glossy, white paper with black lettering. Chanel, Dior, Hermes. The handles were made of silk ribbon. They felt smooth against her palms. They felt like freedom. She looked at her reflection in a shop window. She didn't see the daughter who had betrayed her mother. She didn't see the woman who had sold a family legacy for quick cash. She saw a queen. She saw a woman of the world. Edward walked beside her. He was wearing a new suit. Italian wool. Navy blue. It was tailored to fit him perfectly. He had bought it an hour ago, using the money from Robert's truck. He looked handsome. He looked successful. He looked like the man Angela had always wanted him to be. "Look at this city, baby," Edward said. He spread his arms wide, as if he owned the streets. "This is where we belong. Not in that dusty old town. Not waiting for your mother to die." Angela flinched, just for a second. The mention of her mother brought a sudden chill, a flash of memory. The green plastic chair at the clinic. The silence on the other end of the phone. But she pushed it away. She buried it under the excitement of Paris. "Don't talk about her," Angela said. "She's fine. She has her pension. She's probably happy to be rid of the big house." "Exactly," Edward said. He kissed her temple. His lips were cold. "We did her a favor. Downsizing is good for seniors." He checked his watch. A Rolex, also new. "Dinner reservation is in 20 minutes. Lamborghini. 3 Michelin stars. I ordered the private table." Asterisk, they took a taxi to the restaurant. The interior of the car smelled of leather and citrus. Edward tipped the driver with a €100 note. He didn't wait for change. "Keep it," he said. "Buy some better cologne." He laughed. Angela laughed too. It felt good to be rich. It felt good to be reckless. They walked into the restaurant. It was like entering a jewel box. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. The light was soft, golden. The tablecloths were white, blindingly white, stiff with starch. Waiters moved like ghosts, silent, efficient, invisible until you needed them. They sat at a corner table, overlooking the square. The waiter poured wine, a vintage red, 1982, the same year Robert had bought his first building. Angela didn't know that. She just knew it cost €800 a bottle. She swirled the liquid in the glass. "To us," she said. "To the future." "To the investors," Edward corrected. He took a sip. "Once the European partners sign the deal tomorrow, we won't just be rich. We will be wealthy. We will buy a villa in the south. We never have to go back." Angela smiled. She drank the wine. It was rich, velvety. It masked the tiny voice of guilt in the back of her head. They ordered everything: caviar, lobster, truffles shaved over pasta like falling snow. They ate like royalty. They laughed too loud. Other diners looked at them. Angela thought they were looking with envy. She didn't realize they were looking with disdain. They looked like tourists burning through an inheritance, which is exactly what they were. Dessert arrived. Gold-flecked chocolate cake. Edward leaned back in his chair. He patted his stomach. This is the approached with a silver tray. A small leather folder sat on top. The bill. Edward didn't even look at the total. He reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out his wallet. It was made of alligator skin. He pulled out a black credit card. The heavy kind, metal. He tossed it onto the tray. It made a solid clink. "Add 20% for yourself," Edward said, waving his hand, dismissing the man. The waiter bowed. "Merci, monsieur." He took the tray and vanished. Angela sighed. She looked out the window. It started to rain. Soft drops against the glass, like tears. "It's so beautiful here," she whispered. "I'm so glad we left." 5 minutes passed. Edward checked his phone. He was looking at sports scores. 10 minutes passed. The waiter had not returned. Angela frowned. "What's taking so long?" "Probably admiring the card," Edward joked. "They don't see limits like that every day." Then the waiter appeared. He was not bowing this time. His posture was stiff. His face was blank. He walked to the table. He placed the leather folder back in front of Edward. He leaned down. His voice was a whisper, but it sounded like a scream in the quiet room. "Monsieur, there is a problem." Edward didn't look up from his phone. "What problem?" "Just run it again." "Redid, monsieur, 3 times." The waiter paused. It was declined. The air in the restaurant suddenly felt thin. Edward laughed. A nervous sound. "That's ridiculous. That card has a $50,000 limit." "I paid the balance last week," says declined, monsieur. Code 05. Do not honor. Angela felt a cold knot form in her stomach. The lobster suddenly felt heavy. "Edward," she asked. "It's a glitch," Edward snapped. He opened his wallet again. His fingers were moving faster now, less graceful. He pulled out a second card. "A platinum visa. Here, use this one. And tell your machine to wake up." The waiter took the card. "One moment." He walked away. Edward looked at Angela. "European banking systems," he scoffed. "They are archaic." "Don't worry, babe." But his eyes were darting around the room. He was sweating. Just a tiny bead on his temple. Shining under the chandelier light, Angela watched the waiter. He walked to the terminal at the front station. He inserted the card. He waited. Angela held her breath. She counted the seconds. 1, 2, 3. The waiter shook his head. He pulled the card out. He walked back to the table. Tie. The manager was with him. The manager was a tall man, with a nose like a hawk. He did not look friendly. "Monsieur," the manager said, "both cards have been declined. Do you have another form of payment?" "This is impossible," Edward shouted. He stood up. His chair scraped loudly against the floor. Heads turned. The envy in the room turned to amusement. "I am Edward Miller. I have assets in 3 countries. Your machine is broken." "Machine is working perfectly," the manager said. His voice was ice. "The bank message is specific. Suspicious activity. Assets frozen by creditor. Creditor." Edward stammered. "What creditor?" "I don't have creditors." "I suggest you call your bank, monsieur. In the meantime, we need to settle the bill. 4,200 euros. Angela's hands were trembling. She hid them under the table. "Edward," she hissed. "Call the bank. Fix this." Edward pulled out his phone. His hands were shaking too. He dialed the number on the back of his card. He put it on speaker. The automated voice filled the awkward silence. "Welcome to Global Trust Bank." "Representative." Edward yelled. "Representative." Music played, violins. It sounded mocking. Finally, a human voice answered. "Security Department. This is Sarah. How can I help you?" "My cards are declining," Edward shouted. "I'm in Paris. I have a bill to pay." "Unfreeze them." Now, there was the sound of typing. Click, click, click. "Mr. Miller," the voice said, "I see here that a hold has been placed on all your accounts." "A hold? By who?" "By the primary lien holder of your business loans." "What?" Edward went pale. He looked like a ghost. I missed one payment." "Just one. The lien holder has exercised their right to accelerate the debt, sir. They have purchased your consumer debt as well. All assets are frozen pending a fraud investigation regarding the collateral." "Fraud?" Edward squeaked. "What collateral?" "The property at 1400 Oak Street, sir. The deed does not match your name." Angela gasped. She grabbed Edward's arm. "Edward, what is she talking about?" Edward pulled away. He was staring at the phone. "Who is the lien holder?" He whispered. "Who bought the debt?" "One moment," the operator said. "The file says ... RB Ventures." Edward dropped the phone. It hit the white tablecloth with a thud. RB Ventures. He didn't know the name, but he knew what it meant. It meant he was broke. It meant he was stranded. It meant the game was over. The manager stepped forward. He crossed his arms. "Monsieur?" The bill. Edward looked at Angela. The arrogance was gone. The king was dead. In his place was a scared little boy. "Angie," he whispered, "do you have cash?" Angela stared at him. The silence stretched, painful, humiliating. "I have 50 euros, she whispered. "You said you had millions." I did. I don't know what's happening." The manager signaled to the security guard by the door. "Monsieur, Madame, if you cannot pay, we will have to call the police. Theft of services is a serious crime in France. Police?" The word hung in the air. Angela felt the room spinning. The crystal chandeliers blurred. The smell of truffles made her nauseous. She looked down at her new Chanel bag. It sat on the floor. Mocking her, she grabbed it. She dumped it onto the table, lipstick, tissues, and a velvet jewelry box. She opened it. Inside was a diamond bracelet. She had bought it that morning. "Here," she said. Her voice broke. She pushed the bracelet toward the manager. It's worth 5,000. Take it. Just let us go." The manager looked at the bracelet. He looked at Edward. He looked at Angela. His lip curled in disgust. "We are a restaurant, madame, not a pawn shop." He picked up the bracelet. He examined it under the light. "But given the alternative, I will accept this as collateral until you return with cash. You have 12 hours. 12 hours. Edward choked. "My cards are frozen." "Then I suggest you start walking," the manager said. "Or call someone who cares." Asterisk, they walked out of the restaurant into the rain. They didn't have money for a taxi. They didn't have umbrellas. The Paris rain was cold. It soaked through Edward's Italian wool suit. It ruined Angela's hair. They walked in silence, shivering. Defeated, the city of light felt dark now. Every shadow looked like a threat. Angela looked at Edward. He was frantically trying to call his business partner. No answer. He looked pathetic. And for the first time, Angela wondered who RB Ventures was. She wondered who had the power to turn off their life with a flip of a switch. She looked up at the moon. It looked like a cold, white eye, watching her. She didn't know that 4,000 miles away, in a cheap motel room, her mother was watching too, holding a ledger and smiling. The knock on the door was weak. It sounded like a bird hitting a window pane, hesitant, broken. I knew who it was before I stood up. It had been 3 days since I froze Edward's accounts. 3 days since I turned off the tap of their stolen luxury. I checked the peephole. The fisheye lens distorted the hallway, but I recognized the slump of the shoulders. I recognized the wet hair plastered to the skull. I unlocked the deadbolt. Clack. I unlocked the chain. Rattle. I opened the door. Angela stood there. She looked like a ghost or a drowned rat. The Paris chic was gone. Her eyes were hollow, rimmed with red. Her skin was pale, gray like the motel carpet. She was wearing a trench coat that was 2 sizes too big. It was stained with mud at the hem. She held a single plastic bag, a grocery bag. That was her luggage. The Chanel bags were gone. The Dior bags were gone, sold, pawned for a plane ticket home. "Mom," she whispered. Her voice was cracked, dry, like dead leaves stepping on pavement. I didn't hug her. I didn't step aside to let her in immediately. I stood in the doorway, blocking the view of my small, sad kingdom. "Angela," I said. My voice was flat. "You're back early. I thought you were living like a queen in Europe." She flinched. "Please, Mom, let me in. It's freezing." "Come in," I said. "If you can fit." She walked into room 12. She stopped in the center of the room. She looked around. Her eyes took in the peeling wallpaper, the water stain on the ceiling that looked like a bruise, the flickering lamp by the bed. The smell of stale smoke and cheap lemon cleaner hit her. She gagged. "Just a little." "Mom," she said, "you live here?" I closed the door. I locked the deadbolt again. "It's all I can afford," I lied. I pulled my thin cardigan tighter around my shoulders, playing the part. The victim. The poor widow stripped of her dignity. The pension check doesn't go far. And after the house was sold. I let the sentence hang in the air, heavy, accusing. After the house was sold, I had to take what I could get. The bluebird isn't so bad. If you don't mind the rats in the dumpster. Angela dropped the plastic bag on the floor. It made a sad, soft sound. She sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress groaned under her weight, springs squeaking in protest. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I didn't know it would be like this." "You didn't care?" I said. I sat in the single wooden chair in the corner. It was hard, unforgiving. "Where is Edward?" I asked. I knew the answer, but I wanted to hear her say it. I wanted her to taste the ash of her betrayal. Angela put her head in her hands. Her shoulders started to shake. "He left me," she sobbed. "At the airport. He went to the bathroom and never came back." "Imagine that," I said. I didn't offer a tissue. The man who stole my truck. The man who stole my house. Turns out he's a thief. Who could have predicted it? "He said he loved me," she cried. "He said we were partners. He loved the money, Angela. And when the money froze, he ran." I watched her cry. It was a cruel thing to watch your own child suffer, but necessary, like setting a broken bone. You have to pull it apart before it can heal straight. She needed to break completely. "I have nowhere to go, Mom," she said. She looked up at me. Her mascara was running down her cheeks. Black tears. "My apartment is locked. The superintendent said the lease was terminated. My key card didn't work. I tried to go to the bank, but they said my accounts are under investigation." "Investigation," I repeated. "That sounds serious." "I don't understand what's happening. I have no money, no home, no husband." She looked at me with pleading eyes. The same eyes she used to have when she was 6 years old, asking for a glass of water after a nightmare. "Can I stay here? Just for a few days. Until I figure this out." I looked around the room. I pretended to consider it. I pretended to calculate the cost of water and electricity. Inside, I was laughing. It was perfect. The prodigal daughter returning to the scene of the crime. Or rather, the scene of the consequence. "I don't know, Angela," I said slowly. "The manager charges $10 extra for a guest. I don't have $10 to spare. I've $5, she said. She dug into her pocket. She pulled out a crumpled bill. Lincoln stared back at me, wrinkled, defeated. "It's all I have left." I took the bill. I smoothed it out on my knee. Okay, I said. You can stay. Angela let out a breath. She started to unbutton her coat. She looked at the bed. It was a double bed, small, lumpy. Thank you, Mom, she said. I'm so tired. I haven't slept in 2 days. I just need to lie down. She moved to take off her shoes. Stop, I said. My voice was sharp. She froze. One shoe dangling from her foot. What? That bed is mine, I said. It's the only furniture I have left. My back is bad. The doctor said I need support, but... Angela looked at the bed. Then she looked at the rest of the room. There was only the wooden chair. And the floor. The carpet was thin. It was stained with grease and mystery fluids. It was cold. I could feel the draft coming from under the door. Mom, she said, where am I supposed to sleep? I stood up. I walked to the closet. The door was missing a hinge. It hung crookedly. I reached inside. I pulled out a rolled-up bundle. It was an old sleeping bag. Green nylon, smelling of dust and mothballs. I had bought it at a thrift store yesterday, specifically for this moment. I threw it on the floor. At her feet. There, I said. It's warm enough. If you keep your coat on. Angela stared at the sleeping bag. She looked at me. Disbelief warred with exhaustion on her face. The floor, she asked. You want me to sleep on the floor? Like a dog. Dogs usually have beds, I said calmly. You made me homeless, Angela. You sold my sanctuary. Now I live in a box. In this box, I get the bed. Guests get the floor. But I'm your daughter. She shouted. The anger flared up. The entitlement. It was still there. Buried deep under the misery. I am your child. And I am your mother, I replied. My voice rose. Just a fraction. I am the mother you threw away. I am the mother you left with nothing. You made this bed, Angela. Now you can sleep next to it. She stared at me. Her mouth opened and closed. She was waiting for me to crack. She was waiting for the soft, forgiving mother to appear. The one who always gave her the last piece of cake. The one who worked double shifts to buy her prom dress. That mother was gone. That mother had been sold for a plane ticket to Paris. I sat back down on the wooden chair. I picked up a book. I pretended to read. I didn't look at her. I let the silence stretch, thick, suffocating. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator and the distant wail of a police siren. Angela stood there for a long minute. She looked at the bed. She looked at me. Then she looked at the sleeping bag. Slowly, painfully, she knelt down. Her knees hit the hard floor with a thud. She unrolled the green nylon. It made a swishing sound. Cheap, synthetic. She didn't take off her coat. She crawled inside the bag, curling into a fetal ball, trying to keep her body away from the dirty carpet. She turned her back to me, facing the wall, facing the peeling paint. Good night, Mom, she whispered. Her voice was thick with tears. Good night, Angela, I said. I turned the page of my book. I wasn't reading. I was watching her. I was watching the rise and fall of her shoulders. I was watching her shiver as the draft hit her face. It was cold in the room, but it wasn't as cold as the lesson she needed to learn. I reached under my mattress. My fingers brushed against the leather ledger. It was still there. My secret, my power. I could have bought this entire motel chain with a signature. I could have taken us to a suite at the plaza tonight. I could have ordered room service, steak, wine, soft sheets. But I didn't, because comfort is the enemy of change. Angela needed to feel the floor. She needed to smell the dust. She needed to understand that rock bottom isn't a metaphor. It is a place. And she was living in it. I turned off the lamp. Click. Darkness filled the room. Only the neon light from the sign outside filtered through the curtains, painting stripes of red light across Angela's sleeping bag. She looked small, defenseless. For a moment, my heart ached. I wanted to cover her with my blanket. I wanted to tell her it was all a game. But I stayed in the bed. I pulled the covers up to my chin. I listened to her breathing. It was shallow, uneven. She was crying silently. Good tears cleanse the soul, and Angela's soul needed a lot of cleaning, Mom. She whispered into the dark. Yeah, I'm sorry. I know, I said. Go to sleep. I stared at the ceiling. I smiled. Not a happy smile, but a satisfied one. The prodigal daughter had returned. But the fatted calf would not be killed tonight. Tonight, we ate humble pie. And tomorrow, the real work would begin tomorrow. I would show her what it really means to scrub a floor. Morning came too soon. It arrived with the sound of a garbage truck backing up. Beep, 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 Angela groaned. She rolled over on the thin green sleeping bag. Her bones cracked. Sleeping on the floor is not kind to the body, especially a body used to Egyptian cotton sheets and memory foam. She sat up. Her hair was a mess. Her eyes were swollen. She looked at me. I was already awake, sitting in the wooden chair, drinking black coffee from a styrofoam cup. Good morning, I said. My voice was calm. Coffee. I pointed to the jar of instant granules by the sink. There is no milk. Or sugar. Angela rubbed her face. I need a shower, she mumbled. The hot water lasts for 3 minutes, I said. Be quick. She shuffled to the bathroom. She looked broken. But broken things still need to eat. And broken things still need to pay rent. When she came out, she looked slightly better. But the fear was still in her eyes. The panic of the destitute. Mom, she said, I checked my phone. Edward still hasn't called. The bank app is still locked. I have $4 left. Then you have a problem? I said. I took a sip of the bitter coffee. Because the manager wants the $10 for your stay by noon. Angela stared at me. You're going to kick me out? Over $10. I don't have it, Angela. I'm a poor widow. Remember? I put the cup down, but I have a solution. Her eyes lit up. Hope? Dangerous thing. You do? Did you find some money? No, I said. I found a job. I pulled a crumpled flyer from my pocket. I had picked it up from the lobby floor yesterday. I smoothed it out on the small table. Sparkle City Cleaning Services. I read, immediate hire. Night shift. No experience needed. I pushed the paper toward her. They pay minimum wage, plus tips. If you find a dime on the floor, Angela looked at the flyer like it was a dead rat. Cleaning, she whispered. Mom, I have a degree in art history. I used to run a gallery. I can't be a janitor. Hunger doesn't care about your degree, I said. And neither does the landlord. The bus leaves in 20 minutes. The depot is downtown. She looked at the paper. Then she looked at her empty purse. Then she looked at the sleeping bag on the floor. Pride is heavy, but poverty is heavier. Fine, she spat. She grabbed the flyer, but only for a few days. Until I get my accounts back. Of course, I said. Just temporary. I watched her leave. She slammed the door. The frame rattled. I waited until I heard her footsteps fade. Then I smiled. She was going to the interview. But she didn't know who the client was. Sparkle City Cleaning had just signed a major contract with a holding company called RB Ventures. Their biggest account was a skyscraper on Fifth Avenue. My skyscraper. Angela got the job. Of course she did. They need warm bodies. They don't ask questions. She came back to the motel that afternoon. She was carrying a plastic bag. Inside was a blue tunic, polyester, stiff, and a pair of gray pants. I start tonight, she said. Her voice was hollow. Shift starts at 6 p.m., ends at 2 a.m. Good, I said. Make us proud. She put on the uniform. It didn't fit well. It bunched at the shoulders. The fabric made a swishing sound when she moved. Swish, swish. The sound of servitude. She tied her hair back. She looked in the cracked mirror above the sink. She didn't recognize herself. The socialite was gone. The cleaner remained. Where are you working? I asked innocently. Some office building downtown, she said. The tower or something? The Peterson building. I corrected her in my head. But out loud, I just said, "Sounds fancy. Try not to break anything." She left at dusk. I didn't go with her. I didn't need to. I knew exactly where she was going. I knew the smell of the service elevator she would ride. Grease and old mop water. I knew the hum of the industrial vacuums. I closed my eyes and imagined it. My daughter, who once bought purses worth more than a car, was now pushing a yellow bucket on wheels into the lobby of my empire, the building at 500 Fifth Avenue. It's a fortress. Steel, glass, power. Angela walked in through the loading dock. She punched a clock caught chunk. She grabbed her supplies. A bottle of blue spray, a rag, a feather duster. Her supervisor was a woman named Maria. Maria didn't care about Angela's art degree. Floor 40, Maria barked. Executive suites. Be careful. The wood is expensive. Don't scratch it. Angela took the freight elevator up. Floor 40. The doors opened. The air changed. It didn't smell like the loading dock. It smelled of money, leather, orchids, silence. The carpet was thick. Her rubber-soled shoes sank into it. She walked down the hallway. She was surrounded by portraits of serious men, bankers, investors. She didn't look at them. She was too busy looking at the dust on the baseboards. Because if she missed a spot, she didn't get paid. She reached the double doors at the end of the hall. The boardroom. This was the heart of the beast. This was where decisions were made that moved millions. This was where I met with Arthur Peterson every Tuesday. She pushed the doors open. The room was massive. A table the size of a landing strip sat in the center, mahogany, polished to a mirror shine. 20 leather chairs surrounded it. High backs, gold studs. Angela sighed. She sprayed the blue liquid on the table. Mist filled the air. Chemicals. She started to wipe. Circular motions. Wax on. Wax off. She leaned over the table. Sweat pricked her forehead. The polyester uniform trapped the heat. It was itchy. She scrubbed a coffee ring near the head of the table. Someone had been careless. Someone had set a hot cup down without a coaster. Pigs, she muttered. Rich pigs. She scrubbed harder. She hated the person who sat in this chair. The chairman's chair. The big one at the head of the table. It was taller than the others. More imposing. She looked at the leather seat. It was worn slightly, shaped by the person who sat there. She didn't know the shape was mine. She didn't know that coffee ring was from my cup. From this morning. When I signed the order to freeze her bank accounts, she dropped to her knees. She had to clean the legs of the table. She crawled on the expensive carpet, like a child. Or a beggar. She sprayed the wood. She wiped. She saw her reflection in the dark mahogany leg. Distorted small blue uniform. Tired eyes. I hate this, she whispered to the empty room. I hate this life. I hate my mother for making me live like this. I hate Edward. Hate is good fuel. It keeps you moving when your muscles burn. She finished the table. She moved to the window. Floor 40 offered a view of the entire city. The lights twinkled below, like diamonds spilled on black velvet. She pressed her forehead against the cold glass. She looked down at the streets. Somewhere down there, in the dark patches, was the Bluebird Motel, was her sleeping bag, was her new reality. And up here, in the sky, was the life she thought she deserved. She was standing in the center of power. But she was just the help. She was the ghost who cleaned up the mess after the kings and queens went home. She turned back to the room. She picked up the trash can by the chairman's desk. She dumped it into her bag, papers, shredded documents, coffee grounds. She tied the bag. She didn't look at the framed photo on the credenza behind the desk. If she had looked, she might have seen a familiar face. A photo of a man standing next to a bus, smiling. My Robert. But she didn't look. She was too tired. She was too ashamed. She grabbed her bucket. The wheels squeaked. Squeak. She walked out of the boardroom. She turned off the lights, click, leaving the room in darkness, leaving my chair empty, waiting for me to return in the morning, I was lying in the motel bed when she came back. It was 3 a.m. She smelled of ammonia and sweat. She didn't say a word. She took off the blue tunic. She threw it in the corner. She crawled into her sleeping bag. "How was work?" I asked into the darkness. "Hell," she whispered. It was hell. Good, I thought. Hell is where you burn away the sin. "Get some sleep," I said aloud. "You have another shift tomorrow." "I know," she said. "I know." She closed her eyes, and for the first time in her life, Angela knew what it meant to be tired from honest work. She was cleaning my empire, one toilet at a time. The rain had stopped, but the air was still heavy, damp. It smelled of wet asphalt and old cigarettes. The Bluebird Motel was quiet, except for the hum of the vending machine outside. Inside room 12, the silence was louder. It was a silence filled with hunger. Angela was sitting on her sleeping bag. She was massaging her feet. They were red, swollen. 8 hours of standing on marble floors had taken their toll. "We have to pay the weekly rate tomorrow," she said. She didn't look up. $40 per night. Plus tax. That's $300. "I know," I said. I was sitting in the wooden chair. My back was stiff. "I don't have it." "I don't get paid until Friday," Angela whispered. Panic crept into her voice. "They'll kick us out, Mom. We'll be on the street." I didn't answer. I leaned down to my battered suitcase. The leather was cracked, scuffed. I rummaged through the contents, searching. "I was looking for my other sweater," I mumbled. "Maybe I can sell it." I pulled out a gray wool cardigan, Mathitan. Then I let my hand slip. I pushed a small wooden box out from the lining. It tumbled onto the dirty carpet, thud. It wasn't a loud noise. But in that small room, it sounded like a gunshot. The box was mahogany, dark, rich. It had gold hinges that caught the dim light of the lamp. It looked alien against the stained beige carpet, like a relic from another world. Angela looked up. Her eyes locked onto the box. The exhaustion vanished from her face, replaced by a sharp, predatory focus. "What is that?" she asked. I picked it up. I wiped a speck of dust from the lid. "Oh, this old thing," I shrugged. "Careless." "Ah, I found it in the back of Robert's closet when I was packing. I think it belonged to his grandmother." I tossed it in the bag without thinking. I opened the lid. Creak! The sound of a secret being spilled. Inside, resting on a bed of midnight blue velvet, lay a necklace and 2 earrings, rubies, deep blood red, surrounded by a halo of small glittering diamonds. They sparkled violently in the gloom. Angela gasped. She stopped breathing. She crawled across the floor, ignoring the pain in her feet. She moved like an animal stalking prey. "Mom," she whispered. "Let me see." "Ah." I held the box out. "They're probably glass," I said. My voice was dismissive. "Costume jewelry. Robert's grandmother didn't have money. Probably worth $20 at a pawn shop." Angela took the box. Her hands were trembling. She lifted the necklace. She felt the weight of it. Gold is heavy. Glass is light. This was heavy. She ran her thumb over the stones. She knew jewelry. She had spent years buying it with Edward's credit cards. She knew the cold bite of a real gem. "This isn't glass," she murmured. Her eyes were wide, feverish. "Mom, this is real gold. These are real rubies." She looked at me. "This could be worth thousands. Maybe 10,000. I'd feign shock." "Really? Well, that's lucky." I reached for the box. "I'll take it to the pawn shop down the street tomorrow. If we get a few hundred, we can pay the rent." Angela pulled the box away. She clutched it to her chest, defensive. "No." She snapped. "Don't be stupid, Mom. A pawn shop will rob you blind. They'll give you $50 for something worth 5,000. Then what do we do?" I asked. I watched her. I watched the war behind her eyes. This was the test. The final exam. "Let me handle it," she said. Her voice was fast, breathless. "I know a private buyer downtown. An old contact from the gallery days. He pays cash. Fair market value." She looked at me. Mom, think about it. We could get an apartment. A real apartment. With beds, with hot water. We could get out of here, okay? I said softly. You take it. But Angela, promise me. I leaned forward. Promise me this money is for us. For our survival. She nodded. Too quickly. Of course, Mom, for us. I promise. She put the necklace back in the box. Snap. She put the box in her purse. Zip. She sat back on her heels. She smiled. But it wasn't a smile of relief. It was a smile of greed. And secrets. That night, the rain started again, drumming against the roof. I lay in the bed, pretending to sleep. My breathing was even deep, but my eyes were open, staring at the wall. At 2 a.m., I heard the zipper of a sleeping bag. Zizzeep, slow, quiet. Angela stood up. She took her phone. She crept into the bathroom. She closed the door. Click. She turned on the fan to mask her voice. But the fan was old. It rattled. And the walls were thin. I strained my ears. I needed to hear the betrayal, Edward. She whispered, "Pick up." Damn it. Pick up, a pause. Then a gasp of relief. "Baby, it's me. Listen, don't hang up." My heart turned to ice. She was calling him the man who left her at the airport. The man who stole my life. "I found something," she said. "My mother had a stash, jewelry, rubies. It's real, Edward." Silence. Then she spoke again, faster. "No, she thinks it's trash. She gave it to me to sell. I'm going to the buyer tomorrow. Can wire you the money," she promised. "Yes, for the lawyer. To unfreeze the accounts. If we pay the retainer, maybe we can get access to the offshore funds. I know you. Didn't mean to leave me. I know you were scared." She was crying now. Soft, pathetic sobs. "Just wait for me, Edward. I'm fixing it. I'm saving us." I closed my eyes. A single tear slid down my cheek into my ear. It was cold. She wasn't saving us. She was saving him. She was willing to let her mother rot in a motel room. She was willing to sleep on the floor, just to throw money into the black hole of that man's greed. She had failed. The integrity test was over. And she had scored a 0. She came out of the bathroom 10 minutes later. She slid back into her sleeping bag. She sighed. A sigh of hope. False hope. She didn't know that the buyer she knew downtown had retired years ago. She didn't know that his shop was now a front, controlled by RB Ventures. She didn't know that when she walked into that store tomorrow, she wouldn't be meeting a friend. She would be meeting her destiny the next morning. Angela was up before the sun. She put on her uniform, but she kept her purse close. "I'm going to work early," she said. She didn't look at me. Guilt makes it hard to make eye contact. "I'm going to stop by the buyer's place on my lunch break. I'll have the cash tonight." "Good," I said. I drank my black coffee. "Be careful, Angela. Don't lose it." "I won't," she said. She opened the door. The cold morning air rushed in. "Bye, Mom." "Goodbye, Angela," I said. And I meant it. Because the daughter who walked out that door was not coming back. At least, not the way she expected. I watched her walk across the parking lot. She clutched her purse like a shield. I picked up my burner phone. I dialed Arthur. "She's moving," I said. "She has the package." "We are ready," Arthur replied. "The shop is prepped. The cameras are rolling." "Good," I said. Let her try to sell it. Let her sign the bill of sale. Let her incriminate herself completely. And then, Arthur asked. "And then?" I said. "Bring her to the boardroom. Bring her to me." I stood up. I went to the closet. I pulled out my black dress, the one I wore to bury Robert. It seemed fitting. Today was a funeral too. The funeral of my patience. I put on the dress. It was tight. I buttoned my coat. I walked out of room 12. I didn't lock the door. I didn't care about the clothes inside. I didn't care about the sleeping bag. I walked to the curb. A black sedan pulled up. Tinted windows. The driver opened the door. "Good morning, Mrs. Brooks," he said. To the tower? Yes, I said. To the tower. I got in. The leather seat was soft, warm. I watched the Bluebird Motel fade in the rearview mirror. I wasn't the poor widow anymore. I was the judge, and court was in session. The bell above the shop door jingled. It sounded like a warning. Angela stepped inside. The air in the pawn shop was thick. It smelled of old brass, stale tobacco, and broken dreams. Dust motes danced in the single beam of sunlight cutting through the barred window. A wall of ticking clocks stared at her. Tick, tock, tick, tock, counting down the seconds of her betrayal. She walked to the counter. The glass was scratched, cloudy. Behind it stood a man, Mr. Silva. He was polishing a silver spoon. He didn't look up. "We're closed," he grunted. "I have something special," Angela whispered. She pulled the mahogany box from her purse. She placed it on the glass. Click. "Rubies, antique. My mother says they are trash. But I know better." Mr. Silva stopped polishing. He looked at the box. Then he looked at a small camera mounted in the corner of the ceiling. Angela didn't notice the red light blinking. Blink, blink. She didn't know I was watching. From the comfort of my black sedan parked across the street, I watched the feed on a tablet. My heart was a stone in my chest, heavy, cold. "Let me see," Mr. Silva said. He opened the box. He whistled low. "Very nice. Stolen." "No," Angela said quickly. "Inherited. They are mine to sell." "Liar." "I can give you 8,000, Mr. Silva said. "Cash." Angela's eyes lit up. Greed. It transformed her face. It made her look ugly. 8,000, she breathed. "That's perfect. But I can't take cash." Mr. Silva raised an eyebrow. "Oh, I need you to wire it," she said. She pulled a crumpled piece of paper from her pocket. "To this account? In Paris. It has to go today. It's urgent." Mr. Silva took the paper. He read the name out loud. Edward Miller. He looked at Angela. "Your husband." "Yes," she said. Her voice was desperate. "He's in trouble. This money will save him. Please just send it." I closed my eyes. The tablet screen went black in my mind. But the audio was crystal clear. "He's in trouble. This money will save him." She wasn't saving us. She wasn't trying to get us out of the motel. She wasn't trying to buy food. She was sending my grandmother's rubies, my legacy, to the man who had destroyed our lives. She was choosing him again, even after he abandoned her, even after he stole from her. She was still his victim and his accomplice, Mrs. Brooks. Arthur's voice came through my earpiece. "Did you hear that?" "I heard," I said. My voice was ice. She failed. "What do you want to do?" Arthur asked. "Do we stop the wire?" I looked out the window of the car. Angela was pacing inside the shop. She looked hopeful. She thought she had one. She thought she had outsmarted the poor senile widow. She thought she could rob me blind and use the money to buy back the love of a con artist. "No," I said. "Let the wire go through, Antonia." Arthur sounded surprised. "But that's $8,000. Not money, Arthur," I said. "It's evidence. Wire fraud, interstate theft, trafficking in stolen goods." I watched Angela smile as Mr. Silva typed on his computer. "She just signed her own confession," I said. "She thinks she is saving him, but she is just digging her own grave." I felt a shift inside me. The last vestige of pity evaporated. The mother who wanted to protect her child died in that moment, replaced by the matriarch who needed to protect the family name. The soft lesson was over. The sleeping bag wasn't enough. The cleaning job wasn't enough. She needed a shock. She needed the ground to open up and swallow her whole. "Arthur," I said, "initiate the foreclosure on the jewelry." "No," I said, "on her life." "Call the security team at the tower. Have them intercept her when she arrives for her shift tonight." "Intercept her?" "Yes. Bring her to the boardroom. Don't tell her why. Just bring her and the police. Have them on standby," I said. "But outside, I want to talk to her first. I want her to see me. I want her to know who pulled the trigger. I watched Angela leave the shop. She was practically skipping. She clutched the receipt like a winning lottery ticket. She didn't see the black sedan. She didn't see her mother watching from behind tinted glass. She walked down the street, head high, arrogant. She thought she had fixed everything. She had no idea she had just walked into a firing squad. "Driver," I said. "Take me to the tower." The engine purred to life. "I need to prepare the boardroom," I said. "We have a very important meeting tonight." As the car pulled away, I looked at the receipt on the tablet screen one last time. $8,000. Price of a mother's love. No, that was the price of a daughter's betrayal. And tonight, she was going to get the bill. The vacuum cleaner roared. It was a hungry sound, like a beast devouring the silence of the 41st floor. Angela pushed the heavy machine back and forth. Her arms ached. Her back screamed. But her mind was elsewhere. It was in Paris with Edward. She checked her watch. It was 10 p.m. The wire transfer should have cleared by now. $8,000. Sent into the void. To save a man who didn't want to be saved, suddenly the vacuum power cut out. The roar died. The silence that rushed back in was deafening. Angela frowned. She looked at the wall socket. Then she looked up. Two men were standing over her. They were huge. Broad shoulders, black suits. Earpieces coiled behind their ears like plastic snakes. They didn't look like police. They looked like consequences. "Angela Brooks," the taller one asked. His voice was gravel. Angela gripped the handle of the vacuum. Her knuckles turned white. "Yes, come with us." "Why?" She stammered. "I didn't do anything." "Is this about the trash cans?" "I emptied them." "The chairman wants to see you," the man said. Now, the chairman, the owner of RB Ventures, Angela's blood turned to ice water. It was the ring. It had to be. Mr. Silva must have called the police. Or maybe the chairman found out she pawned stolen goods during work hours. She was going to be fired, arrested, thrown back onto the street. "Please," she whispered. "I can explain. It was a misunderstanding." The men didn't answer. They just turned and walked toward the elevators. Angela followed. She had no choice. She dragged her feet. The rubber soles of her cheap shoes squeaked on the marble. Squeak! Squeak! The sound of a mouse walking into a trap. They stepped into the private elevator, the one that required a key card. The doors slid shut. Silence. The lift rose. Smooth, fast. Angela watched the floor numbers tick up. 40, 41, 42, the penthouse level. She had never been this high. Her ears popped. She smoothed her blue tunic. She tried to wipe a smudge of dirt from her cheek, but her hands were shaking too much. She looked at her reflection in the polished steel doors. She looked small, dirty, pathetic. The doors opened. The air here was different. It was cold. It smelled of ozone, and expensive leather, and fear. The hallway was dark, lit only by the recessed lights in the floor. The security guards stopped. They pointed to the double doors at the end of the hall. Mahogany, tall as giants. In there, the guard said, "He is waiting." Angela walked toward the doors. Her legs felt heavy, like she was walking through water. She reached out. Her hand trembled on the brass handle. She pushed. The doors swung open. Creak. The boardroom was vast. Shadowy. The main lights were off. The only illumination came from the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city of New York lay spread out below, a grid of gold and electricity. Rain lashed against the glass, creating a kaleidoscope of fractured light dot at the far end of the room. Sat the desk. It was massive, a slab of black marble. Behind it, the high-backed leather chair was turned away from her, facing the window, facing the storm. Angela couldn't see who was sitting there. She could only see a hand resting on the armrest, a hand holding a glass of amber liquid. "Sir?" she whispered. Her voice echoed in the empty room. "Mr. Chairman." Silence. Only the sound of the rain. drumming against the glass, like 1,000 fingers tapping. "I'm sorry about the ring," she blurted out. She couldn't hold it in. The guilt was a physical weight. "I know I shouldn't have sold it. It belonged to my mother. She's not well. She's poor. I needed the money to help my family." Lies, even at the end. She was lying. "Please don't call the police," she begged. "I'll buy it back. I'll work extra shifts. I'll clean every floor in this building." The chair moved. A low hum of mechanics. Slowly, painfully, slowly. It began to rotate. Angela held her breath. She prepared herself to see a stranger. A faceless corporate tycoon. An old man in a suit. The chair turned. The face came into the light. And Angela stopped breathing. The world stopped spinning. Gravity ceased to exist. It wasn't a man. It was a woman. She was wearing a black suit, tailored sharp as a razor. A silk blouse shimmered at her throat. A string of pearls glowed against the dark fabric. Her hair was styled, elegant, imposing, but it was the eyes that froze Angela in place. They were familiar. They were the eyes that had looked at her across the breakfast table for 40 years. But they weren't warm anymore. They were hard, diamond hard. "Hello, Angela," I said. My voice was low. It carried across the room, clear, authoritative. Angela stumbled back. She grabbed the door frame for support. "Mom," she wheezed. It was a sound of pure disbelief. "Mom, what? What are you doing here?" She looked around the room, frantic. "Can't be here. Security will find you. You're cleaning the wrong floor. We have to go before they catch us." She still didn't get it. She couldn't process the image. The poor widow from the motel, sitting in the seat of God. "I'm not cleaning, Angela," I said. I took a sip of my whiskey. It burned pleasantly. "I am the chairman." "What?" "I am RB Ventures." I placed the glass on the marble desk. Click. "I own this building. I own the motel you sleep in. I own the bank that holds your husband's debt. And as of this morning, picked up a piece of paper from the desk. The wire transfer receipt. I own the evidence of your federal crime." Angela's knees gave out. She sank to the floor, her blue uniform pooling around her. "No," she whispered. "That's impossible. Dad was a bus driver. You are poor. We sold the house." I stood up. I walked around the desk. My heels clicked on the hardwood floor. The sound of authority. I towered over her. I looked down at my daughter. The woman who had discarded me. The woman who had underestimated me. "You sold a house, Angela," I said. "Brick and mortar. Wood and glass." I leaned down, my face inches from hers. I let her smell my perfume. "Sandalwood and victory. You didn't just sell my house," I hissed. "You tried to sell my empire." I threw the file on the floor next to her. It slid across the wood. Photos spilled out. Photos of her entering the pawn shop. Photos of her leaving the motel. Copies of the ledger. The truth. In black and white. "You thought I was weak," I said. "You thought I was stupid. You thought you could leave me to rot while you played princess in Paris." I straightened up. I walked back to the window. I looked out at my city. "But you forgot one thing, honey." I turned back to her. "The wolf doesn't howl to scare the sheep. The wolf howls to call the pack. And you just walked into the den." Angela stared at the photos. She picked up the ledger. She saw the numbers. She saw the dates. She saw the reality crumbling around her. She looked up at me. Tears streamed down her face. "Mom," she choked out. "Why? Why did you let me sleep on the floor? Why did you make me scrub toilets? Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you wouldn't have listened," I said. "You needed to feel the dirt on your hands. You needed to feel the cold in your bones." I walked back to the desk. I sat down. The leather creaked. "Stand up, Angela." She didn't move. I said, "Stand up." My voice cracked like a whip. She scrambled to her feet, terrified. "Wipe your face," I ordered. She used her sleeve. "Now," I said, "we are going to negotiate. Not as mother and daughter, but as employer and thief. I opened a new folder. A contract. You have a debt to pay. And for the first time in your life, you are going to pay it with work. Not with my money. The paper slid across the cold marble desk. Check. It stopped in front of Angela. It was thick, heavy. The header was printed in bold black letters. Employment agreement. Angela stared at it. She blinked, trying to clear the tears from her eyes. She expected a restraining order. She expected an arrest warrant. She did not expect this. Read it, I commanded. My voice was calm, like the center of a storm. Clause 1, I said. RB Ventures assumes full liability for the debt of Edward Miller. The credit cards. The loans. The wire fraud attempt. Angela looked up. Her mouth fell open. You? You paid it. I bought it. I corrected. The debt is gone. You are free. The police are not coming. She let out a sob. A sound of pure, broken relief. She reached for my hand across the desk. Mom, thank you. I don't know what to say. I swear I'll make it up to you. Pulled my hand away, sharp. Read clause 2, I said. Her smile faltered. She looked back down at the paper. Her eyes scanned the text. They widened. No access to trust principal, she read. No inheritance rights. No dividends. She looked at me, confused. Mom, what does this mean? It means the bank is closed, Angela. I leaned back in my chair. The leather groaned. You are debt-free. But you are also broke. You have $0 to your name. How will I live? She asked. Clause 3, I pointed. You are hereby hired as the program director for the Brooks Foundation. Foundation? Yes, we open next month. We help women who have been victims of financial abuse. Women who have lost everything to liars and thieves. You should be an expert on the subject. I took a sip of my drink. Your salary is $45,000 a year. 45, she whispered. That barely covers rent in this city. Then move, I said. Get a roommate. Take the bus. Clip coupons. Live the life you thought was so beneath you. I held out a pen. It wasn't my gold fountain pen. It was a cheap plastic Bic. The kind you buy in a pack of 10. Sign it, I said. Or don't. The door is open. But if you walk out that door without signing, I call the detectives waiting in the lobby, and you go to prison for wire fraud. The room was silent. Only the rain beat against the glass. Angela looked at the pen. She looked at the window. She looked at the life of luxury she had chased, and she realized it was smoke. She looked at me, and she saw a wall of stone. She took the pen. Her hand was steady now. She didn't sign it with a flourish. She signed it carefully. Scratch, scratch, scratch. She put the pen down. Thank you, she said. Her voice was different. The entitlement was gone, scrubbed away by fear and reality. Don't thank me, I said. I took the paper. I placed it in a folder. Report to the warehouse district on Monday. 8 a.m. sharp. Don't be late. She stood up. She smoothed her blue cleaning tunic. She looked at me one last time. Good night, Chairman, she said. Good night, Angela. She walked to the door. She opened it. Light from the hallway spilled into the dark room. She stepped out, and the heavy mahogany doors clicked shut, click. I was alone. I turned my chair to the window. I looked out at the city lights. My husband's city, my city. I raised my glass to the reflection in the window. We did it, Robert, I whispered. She's safe. She's poor. But she's safe. Justice had been served. Not with a sword, but with a salary. The matriarch had spoken, and the will was done.